Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, for years, critics of the government's counter-terrorism strategy, the PREVENT programme, have claimed that it stigmatises the Muslim community. But last year, the number of people referred to PREVENT over concerns about far-right extremism rose by more than a third. This programme has been given exclusive access to the first PREVENT group aimed at a group of mothers from predominantly white areas of Bradford. Our Home Affairs correspondent Darshana Soni has been speaking to them about why an increasing number of young white people are vulnerable to radicalisation.
We know that there's a range of groups out there that seem to influence our thought processes and that want to groom our children in joining these groups.
I didn't think white people could be radicalised.
Okay.
As far as I were aware, radicalisation was something that belonged within the Muslims, the ISIS.
It's an honest admission, and a common one. We're used to hearing about PREVENT programmes aimed at the Muslim community, but this workshop targets white mums like Karen, who are being taught how to stop their teenagers being drawn in by right-wing extremists.
Our kids could end up joining these gangs, or whatever you want to call them, because it is like a gang if you think about it.
They live on some of Bradford's most deprived estates. They're also the most segregated. Something that Sophia Mahmood was all too aware of when she first invited the women onto the voluntary programme.
What were the perceptions that the white mums had of you when you first walked into the room?
That was a South Asian woman, a woman with a headscarf, Pakistani, and that's all they saw. And initially that's all they saw.
Sophia doesn't shy away from having difficult conversations.
He's the co-founder of EDL. He's very much what he classifies as an advocate and a spokesperson for the white British community.
She wanted to create a safe space to allow the women as influencers in their communities to talk openly without fear of being judged, and it led to some candid comments.
I actually think it does make a lot of valid points from a white person. There is a lot of issues that he likes to raise, but I also see beyond that is also causing a bigger divide. You know, he does go on a lot about the Asian grooming gangs and, you know, highlighting the fact that it is there, which we do know it's there, but I think in some impressionable minds they then turn and just assume that all Muslims are the same.
Before you came, what was your sort of perceptions of Muslims?
That they're different to us.
Right.
You know, there's different rules for them. I believe that I'm a minority in society. I believe,
even though you're white, and obviously,
I believe that the law system and everything takes more into account how an Asian person feels rather than a white. Same with the sentencings.
It's like it seems to be like it's one rule for them and another one for us, and our views don't matter.
And it's this feeling that their views don't matter that some groups are keen to exploit, as the women themselves tell me.
There's media platforms now that encourage that thought process that you keep within, that promotes more anger within.
Right.
And you'll keep carrying that anger.
People get drawn into it, and then when they understand what it is, they think, oh, well, this is a good thing, we'll join this, and we'll target these Muslims and that, and I don't think it's right, I think it's wrong.
But you do see a lot of kids getting drawn into that.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
There's been a huge proliferation of extreme right-wing websites.
I've just blocked social networking and online gaming, but I've left the other stuff open.
And the women are taught how to question what they read online.
We honestly believe that somewhere in mosques there's somebody called an imam who's causing division and telling these kids you must blow yourself up.
The hate speech that's going out there, you know, just only the other day I'd received a video of a man, a white British man on a bus, and he is just recording these young children walking out of school, and he's spitting hate, vile abuse.
They're all going to breed like rats. So this was England. Everywhere you look, they're all got stories on, look.
The video went viral. A man in his 60s was arrested and bailed. Counter-terror police believe that religious hate crime is a proxy measure for the increasing terror threat from the extreme right wing, a threat that critics say has been overlooked. Bradford has had a troubled history of race relations and was once described as a racial tinderbox. In 2001, the city saw 3 days of rioting between Asian and white gangs. Groups like the National Front were accused of taking advantage of local grievances. The BNP went on to win seats on the council. But did the threat of the far right slip under the radar of a counter-extremism strategy seen to be focusing on Muslims?
Nearly 20 years on from those riots, and parts of Bradford still feel very segregated. Numerous reports have described white and Asian communities as leading parallel lives. There has been some progress and some government funding to tackle the problem, but there's still a strong sense here of us and them, and it's a sense that has been exploited and even encouraged by some right-wing extremist groups.
The Bailey estate lies to the south of the city. Karen agrees to show me round.
I know the most of the people that live around here, yeah. I know quite a few people.
It's mainly white, mainly working class, with a strong sense of community.
I know, yes, he's a lovely lad. He takes a scrap. We leave it in the garden or in the garden and he'll take it away.
Like a rag and bone man?
Yes, yeah, like a rag and bone man, yeah.
But unemployment here is higher than the national average. There are familiar concerns about a lack of resources and investment that feeds a sense of alienation. Karen admits that there's a perception that Muslims are treated preferentially.
They come from other countries and they get the benefits straight away, whereas we've had to work all our lives for the benefits that we get.
So people feel resentful?
Well, obviously, yes, they do. Yeah.
Statistically, of course, Muslims aren't fast-tracked for benefits, but it's a claim often repeated by groups like the EDL. Over the years, they've held several demonstrations in Bradford. But when the authorities banned them from marching, it played into the hands of extremists, and it's still seen as an example of unfair treatment.
There was police from all over the country came, and all they did was a peaceful, and they were expecting our English people to start, and it wasn't, it was the other side. Right. But yet a lot of our people got arrested and the others got let off.
And when you say our people, you mean English people?
I mean our creed, yeah, our nationality, our English people.
What would you say to people who are listening and who might say, oh, but it feels a bit racist, those views?
I don't think they're racist at all. I'm saying it how it is, and I can't say any other.
And you're saying how people feel
well,
on
how
this
people
estate.
feel, yeah.
Being able to express their views and having their views challenged in a safe space is, according to Sophia, why this Prevent course has been so successful.
I don't blame these mums for having the view processes that they have because they've never had an opportunity to engage with somebody of an ethnic minority. Poverty plays a massive contribution to these issues. This is not just because a brown-skinned person doesn't like a white-skinned person. There is deep-rooted issues around where thought processes come from.
Those deep-rooted issues still need to be addressed, but it's hoped that this will be just the start of an ongoing conversation.
We'll go away with more knowledge than what we came with, and we go away a bit more thoughtful.
We were shown a video.
Food for thought.
We were shown a video, and basically, watch this video, and then at the end of it, what do you see? Straight away, I said, I'll be honest, I can see a group full of Muslim women with headscarves on, and that's what I see.
Yeah.
And then when you think about it, what did you really see and what did you listen to? I came away saying, I see a group of mothers who just want the best for the kids, just like I do.
Yeah.
So who am I to judge on what I see? So it's really opened my eyes up, definitely.
Darshana Soni reporting there. So how do authorities engage white working class communities to stop them falling for far-right propaganda? Well, I'm joined now by Labour's Naz Shah, the MP for Bradford West, who's criticised the way the Prevent scheme is run, and by William Balde, a Prevent coordinator. Naz Shah first, when you look at that film from Darshana and you see how the women sort of went on a journey, particularly the end there, would you say, looking at that Prevent has done its job preventing them being exploited by the far right?
I think Prevent is certainly working with the current issues in terms of a rise of far right and working in communities as they are doing in Bradford. I think that to have those brave conversations, I welcome those conversations. I'm really pleased that there is a space for women to be able to say what they really feel. And I feel that we haven't had those brave conversations in the past, and we should have had. We should have been having those conversations. So in this instance, Kathy, yes, whilst I agree that's really, really good work, what I will say is what we have at the minute with an announcement of a review, that review needs to afford the confidence of the Muslim community.
Well, I'll come back to the review, but you're saying Prevent applies fine to the far-right extremism problem? but not to Muslim extremists?
That's not quite what I'm saying. So what I am saying is that you have a model of engagement, and this engagement model isn't new. We've got Empowering Minds in Bradford, we've had Web Guardians in London previously, again, working with parents, talking about radicalisation. And it's absolutely right that we have these conversations. But what Sophia hit the nail on the head for me was these are deep-rooted issues. These are issues about poverty. If you look at the estate that you've been on, if you look at the other estates where there are radicalised, the factors are still the same. The safeguarding issues of children are still the same.
William Balde, Prevent was supposed to win the hearts and minds of communities, but actually it's lost the confidence of Muslim communities. Therefore, it's of limited application, isn't it?
No, so I would disagree. So you're right that in the inception it was keen to win the hearts and minds of Muslim communities. What people tend to forget is in 2005, when it first really kind of hit the ground running, it was built in consultation with Muslim communities. The Preventing Extremism Together consultation went around the country working with Muslim communities. It was a direct response to 7/7 bombings, which is why we had to have that consultation. Those conversations
let me just put that
have continued.
No, I don't agree with that, and the reason I don't agree with it is because when it was consulted on what it started off as, what the Prevent strategy started off was, there's a difference between violence, extremism and terrorism, and they are all three different layers, and where it started is very different to where it is today. Right. It's very, very different.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's been on an evolution. The risks have been on an evolution. The threats have changed. The Prevent strategy has changed to tackle those threats. So yes, there's been an increase in far-right extremism. Society itself has become more polarised generally. The Prevent strategy is responding to the risks and threats that are there in local areas. So you might go to certain areas towards the north, towards North Yorkshire, where the right-wing threat is greater. You might be in areas of East London where the Islamist extremism threat is greater. The Prevent strategy is fairly agnostic in its approach. It will look at the risks, look at the threats, and adapt itself accordingly.
Well, let me put some figures on that. Because of the 394 people who received channel support, part of the Prevent programme, last year, 45% were referred over Islamist extremism, 44% over right-wing extremism. So it's pretty even-handed, isn't it, Naz?
Well, now, and Kathy, this is the danger. So now we might have equal and even numbers, but that doesn't take away from the issue of the confidence in the Muslim community in that 44%. That does not address that issue. And you can't balance the books just because we've got a rise in far-right extremism. The Labour Party in our manifesto, we said very, very clearly we wanted a review. Others want it scrapping. You know, we need to talk about that as well.
What should that review address?
Well, the review, first of all, needs to be entirely independent. So what's interesting for me about the review is that those of us as practitioners that work within Prevent have welcomed the review. The critics who have been calling for this independent review, many of them have now changed their tune completely, knowing that it's coming in, knowing that our homework is going to be marked independently, and realising actually their homework is also going to be marked independently. So those that have misrepresented Prevent, have spun myths around Prevent, they're going to be held to account as well, and I think they're quite nervous about that.
Actually, I'm one of those very, very vocal critics, and I'm far from nervous. I'm very welcoming. I'm welcoming because it's not just critics in terms of we've got the NUT, we've got the NUS, we've had the independent legislator on terrorism who's called for a review. We've had our manifestos calling for a review. So these are not people who are now saying actually we don't want this. And I really take issue with one thing in particular. Let's be clear, this review isn't happening because the Tory government wanted it. It's happening because it went through Parliament, there was an amendment, and the Tories accepted it. It's accepted after years and years of academics, over 140 academics, calling for this review. So let's be clear about that in the first instance. Once we've got that on the table, then the fact remains that we need independence on this review. What we need out of it, the prerequisites have to be not another Sarah Khan scenario where we had lots of Muslim organisations writing to the Prime Minister about that appointment. We need genuine independence on this.
Can I just pick up on the critics' point?
Very briefly.
Well, so the NUT had to redo their votes, recount their votes because it was so close. The NUS didn't even vote; they just passed the motion because they ran out of time. The independent reviewer has praised Prevent. And
I'm really sorry, we are completely out of time. You'll have to hold that thought.
Labour Shadow Minister has praised Prevent as first class.
William Balde, Naz Shah, I'd love to continue, but I'm really sorry we're completely overrunning. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.